Hi, welcome to this dynamic practice. I'm calling it French doors. And so those are like the pocket doors that kind of slide out and in. And I often use French doors as an analogy for leg abduction, which is taking the legs out to the side, and leg adduction, which is adding them toward the midline. So this practice is a lot of inner leg work, it's a lot of outer leg work, strength building, and stability work for the legs. For today's practice, I have a block at the ready, some wall space. If you do practice headstand is an option for today's practice. And also have a strap at the ready, and if you can make a small loop with the strap about this big, we are going to be placing it around the feet like this while squeezing a block. We'll be breaking into the strap, so there's both inner and outer leg work there. So you feel free to kind of pre-make a loop about that big for our practice today. So let's begin. Please start on the back, and you're going to lie on the back. You can relax your arms however it feels comfortable. And with your knees bent, feet flat on the floor, you're going to take one leg out to the side, and we're going to leave it there. And the other foot, you're going to ground it into the floor. And then as you inhale, you're going to press that knee inward and downward so you feel the length of the outer leg and the engagement of your inner leg. And then exhale, come back to center. And then repeat that same thing on the other in the other direction, where you press the knee out to the side. So now I'm getting a stretch on my inner leg as I'm squeezing my outer leg. And then you come back to center and repeat that a few times per side to start mobilizing. This is, in some sense, rotation of the leg. But in a bigger sense, it's adduction and abduction. So there's some rotation, some inward and outward movement here. So yeah, as you breathe, go in one direction, and as you press your knee out, you'll feel the engagement of outer legs. And as you press your knee inward, you'll feel the engagement of your inner legs. And the stretch more or less always happens on the opposite side of the engagement. So go back and forth like this to mobilize this hip inward and outward. Another breath or two here. Okay, and then you come back to center and feel how the right hip socket, the ball and socket joint feels on your first side. And then you can move that foot out of the way and we can focus on the other leg. So on exhales, the foot is planted in the middle. And on inhale, you press your knee downward and inward. And that's engaging your inner legs, stretching your outer leg. Exhale, you come back to center. And then repeat that in the other direction. You press the knee outward. So your outer leg engages, inner leg stretches. Exhale, you come back to center. Go back and forth like this. The range might be different on this side. Also, the ability to press the knee in one direction or both directions might feel different. So go back and forth like this as we're starting to mobilize this inner and outer leg work. Notice how your second leg moves. Go back and forth like this another time or two. So maybe one more cycle. Okay, great. And then from there, you bring your feet back into where they started. Pause there. Notice the after effects of this first move on both hips. Take a deep inhale and exhale for nothing. Okay, and then please place the block in between your thighs. And you're going to squeeze the block between your thighs. Your feet are flat on the ground. And every exhale, you're relaxing to this spot. As you squeeze the block, inhale, lift your hips up into bridge. So this is some back leg work with some inner leg work. Exhale as you lower down. and repeat this a few times and try to keep a consistent squeeze of the block as you lift and lower. So another few times here as you lift and lower. Can you keep a steady engagement on the block? So can you keep a consistent adduction? This is trying to bring your legs into the midline. So what's helping you squeeze the block, those muscles are called adductors. Another couple times here, feeling the back body work as well as inner legs work. Very good. And then exhale as you lower from there. You can remove the block. Take an inhale, exhale here, noticing any new energy on the inside legs. And then we'll repeat this, but instead of squeezing into a block, you're going to take the looped strap around your thighs. I have them like midway between knees and hips. It just feels like a good spot that I can break into the strap a little bit. So I'm adding tension onto the strap. So these are abductors. These are the muscles on the outside legs. And keep breaking into the strap evenly as you lift into bridge on inhale and you lower out of bridge on exhale. And repeat this a few times. Adjust your feet to wherever feels most comfortable for your knees. If the width of the strap needs to be adjusted, go ahead. You can be really particular about that. But yeah, the feet press down into the floor as the hips lift up. And the whole time we're trying to add a consistent tension across the strap. So as you lift and descend, if one leg's a little stronger at this particular move, you might feel your hips go back, go side to side as you lift and lower. Notice that. All right. Very good. And then as you exhale, lower down. And then we're going to take the strap, and instead of having the loop around your thighs, you're going to take the loop around your feet. Once again, we can be very particular about loosening or tightening the strap, but generally if it works around the thighs, that's a good indication it's going to work around your ankles. So it's around the feet, closer to the ankles, particularly, or more specifically, behind this outer bony protuberance on the outside foot. So you're going to break into the strap with your feet, and we're going to bring the block back into the mix. And now this is a supine and upward facing chair pose. While you're squeezing into the block, you are breaking into the strap. So now we are using both adductors and some abductors, and more specifically internal rotators. So you'll feel both inner and outer hips work here. So you're going to squeeze the block, break into the strap, and you can either stay here as you breathe, or if it's available, you can send your legs forward a little bit and extend the hips and spine somewhat. And then exhale, you bring it back to where you started. So thighs vertical, shins horizontal. If you'd like, send your feet forward, breaking into the strap, squeezing the block the whole time. So now we're asking both inner and outer legs to work. Yeah, so another couple breaths here. Okay, great. And then you come back to center. You can remove the block, remove the strap, feet flat on the floor. All right, and notice the new sensations, the feedback from your legs, inner, outer legs. Take a deep breath in, and big exhale. All right, great, and we'll come up to seated. From here, you're gonna start with one leg in front of you. Doesn't matter which leg in front, but we're gonna slide the sitting bones back and reach our arms forward. So we've already activated the outside legs. So as you forward fold, you might feel a little bit different qualities in outer thighs, outer hips. As you reach forward, you can breathe back. You can breathe into your lumbar spine. There's a few breaths here. So take a deep breath in. Big exhale. Yeah, and allow this like warm up stretch to loosen up outer legs, outer hips, low back. All right, and then you can come back up, switch the lacing of your legs so your other shin is in front. From there, slide your sitting bones back. You can tilt your lungs forward. And as you relax forward, breathe into your low back. Notice how this affects outer hips, outer legs. And there's a couple more breaths here. All right, great. And then as you inhale, come back up. From here, take your feet together. And to get an inner leg stretch, you can either, if sitting up feels like enough, you can hold your shins or your ankles. Go ahead and stay here. If it's available, you can round your spine a little bit, get your elbows into your inner thighs, or some people might be able to sit up and add a gentle pressure with their hands. So you could, as long as the knees feel okay, as long as your hips feel okay, remember we are still warming up. This is like we're in like the first stretches of the day. So your knees don't have to go down as far as mine do. They don't have to go down as far, the left might not go down as far as the right. Just kind of notice. So some kind of Baddha Konasana in order to get some stretch along hamstrings and inner legs perhaps. So 2 or 3 more breaths here. All right, very nice. So you come back up. And from here, let's come to hands and knees. And from hands and knees, we'll do a couple cat-cow to warm up the spine. As you inhale, draw your shoulder blades into back, look up toward the ceiling, squeeze the muscles of your back body. As you exhale, draw your navel in, press your mid back up toward the ceiling, and go back and forth like this a few times. So breathe into the spinal extension, exhale into flexion. Go back and forth like this another few times. Okay, very good. So then on your next exhale, come back to what feels like a neutral spine for you. Our toes are curled under, hands drive into the floor, and from here you're going to lift your knees up just a millimeter. And so this is our first kind of like full body strength training of the day. The legs are active. The upper body feels like it's in plank, right? This is more or less a plank. So you drive your hands through the floor. Keep on breathing with the knees just a millimeter up. And 2 more breaths here. Take a big inhale, big exhale, and 1 last time. Okay, and then you take your knees down to the floor. That's option number 1 for people. If the second option does not work either for hips or even for toes, go ahead and stick with this work. But the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to pivot on the toes. The knees are up, and as you inhale, send your knees out to the sides, and as you exhale, try to pin your knees together. And do that several times here. So this is now engaged work for all the muscles that we use in plank. Some of the legs, the leg muscles that we use in plank as well are engaged here, and we're accentuating that adduction as we bring the knees in, and the abduction as we take the legs out. So try this a couple more times. And then from there, take your knees down. You can adjust your feet, adjust your stance, make it wider, and then you're going to curl your toes under and lift back into downward facing dog. All right, great. So you drive your hands through the floor and forward, thighs lift back and up. And first big leg stretch for the back of the body. So back of the legs, press the heels back for extra calf stretch. And ventilate into belly. Breathe into belly another few times here. Okay, very good. And then as you exhale, bend your knees. You can step up to the top of your mat. And as you inhale, look forward, squeeze the muscles of your back body. Exhale, you round your spine. And you come all the way up to standing. Drive your feet through the floor, arms up overhead. Take a huge inhale here. And then exhale, palms back to heart center and by your sides. Okay. All right, so in Tadasana, this is our next pose, mountain pose. Drive your feet through the floor. This glutes can slide down a little bit, lungs lift, all that good front to back work that we do in our Tadasana. And then in Tadasana, see if you can activate your adductors, that's the muscles that bring the legs together, it's like you're trying to slide your feet closer together on the mat. You're not going to move, like you probably don't see me doing it, but I'm trying to move my feet closer, and that gets the adductors working. And then from here, it's like you're trying to rip the mat apart with your feet. And my hope is that as you try to rip the mat apart, you feel the work on the outside thighs. And let's do that one more time. Adduction, it's like you're trying to bunch up the mat underneath you. And then the abduction, like you're trying to rip the mat apart. Okay, great. And then from there, release. Triangle is next. These next two, I'm gonna mirror you. So you're gonna take your right toes out to the right. I know this is my left leg, but you're gonna take your right toes out to the right. And bend your front knee a little bit. And before we get into the triangle proper, feel the adduction by taking your knee inward a little. And then in triangle and side angle, this one tends to be the one we have to focus on, is now you're gonna take your knee out a little. And you can feel the outside of your right leg working. So one more time, take the knee inward. And then you take the leg outward and see if you can keep that active outer leg as you take your hand to block to floor and you slide your front hip underneath your back hip. Okay, so it's a nice strong pressure of right foot into the floor. The navel's rolling up toward the ceiling, and see if you can keep the outer leg working. Especially with a straight or almost straight leg, the tendency is to kind of dump onto the inside of the foot. So even though you keep your big toe mound rooted, make sure that you pin your outer foot down as well. And then you engage your outer legs, and that's going to help. It's almost like going to slide your front hip underneath you a little more. So you're going to stretch the inside of the leg by engaging your outer hip. Top hand can do whatever you'd like. I'll just keep it on my top hip. I'm focusing on that front leg. 2 more breaths. Take a big inhale. Take a big exhale. And one last time. Okay, you can bend the knee a little bit if you need to. Drive both feet through the floor to come all the way up. And then let's try that on the left. So you bend your knees, turn your left toes out to the left. Back toes come in a little. And let's do that again on this side. The front knee bends, and to get the inner leg active, you take the knee inward. So that's adduction. And then you feel the outer leg work as you take the knee out a little bit. And do that one more time. So you take the knee inward, does not have to be far. And then you take the knee outward and try to see if you can keep that activity of going out. It doesn't mean you keep going further out. You just keep the muscles active, working, engaged. And then from there, hand to block to floor, and you can extend your front leg partially or all the way without locking. And then the front foot, this is your left foot in this case, drive that foot down. All right, and the tendency is to kind of dump into the arch. So you're gonna keep your big toe mound rooted, but also make sure your outer foot's working and rooting into the floor. And then from here, especially if the inner leg is tight, that front hip tends to go back. You can use the outer leg, squeeze the outer leg muscles, and it's like you're trying to press your left hip kind of forward, in a sense, and that helps roll your navel up. So if you like a little more stretch on the inside leg, you engage your outside leg. Top hand can do whatever you'd like. I'll just keep it on my hip. And I'm breathing here another 2 or 3 times. Okay, great. And then you drive both feet into the floor. You can bend your front knee if you'd like. Come all the way up. And we'll go back to the first side. The option is to work on that inner outer leg work again in triangle. Option number 2 is to come into half moon with that. And that way you're working inner outer leg not only for structure, but for balance. Okay? So you bend your front knee, take it inward a little. This is your right foot. Right knee inward and then outward. That's what we're kind of focusing on there, is the outward movement as we get into triangle. And you press it's like you're pressing your hip forward through the power of your outer leg. That's also going to help roll your navel up. Okay? And you can either stay here and work on that in your front leg. If this is a good stretch, a good pose, this is where you are today, that's great. If you'd like to bend the front knee a little bit, you will notice that if you bend your front knee, if your outer leg's working, the knee's not going to collapse inward, right? It's going to kind of stay near your arm. And you slide your weight forward, you can slide the block forward, drive your foot into the floor, and keep the big toe mound rooted, but squeeze the muscles of your outer leg, of standing leg. So you're squeezing your right outer hip muscles. Squeeze it to roll your navel up. Squeeze it to stop your inseam from collapsing. You're going to drive the foot down, roll your navel up. It's going to be outer standing leg hip work. And there's 2 more breaths here. Take a big inhale, big exhale. And one last time, breath in. Okay, back leg comes down. Keep that engagement as you lift out of that side, and we'll try it on the other side. We'll move to the other side of my mat. Bend your left knee, drop it inward. Notice how that feels. And then you press it outward a little bit to keep the outer hip, the outer left hip working. And you can either A, take hand to block to floor, and keep that outer leg working to help roll the navel up in triangle. That's option number 1. If it makes sense to do it today, you can stay here. If it makes sense, you bend the knee. And notice that as you're bending the knee, it's not going to collapse in if you're using your outer hip. You're going to keep that outer hip solid and working for you. Slide your weight forward, slide the block forward, and we're going to lift into half moon pose. And as the foot drives down, the navel rolls up toward the ceiling. You wind up using your outer standing leg for structural integrity to help move your belly up. So notice that, notice that. Another few breaths here. Of course, the top leg, you're also using your outer leg to keep it afloat, but you can really focus on the standing leg. And there's 2 more breaths here. Take a big inhale, big exhale, and one last time, breath in. Okay, and then you can bend your standing leg, back foot down, and you come all the way back up. All right, nice. To Tadasana. Once again, drive the feet straight down with no inner outer leg movement. And then from here, try to bunch up the mat. Feel your inner legs work. It helps you reference the midline. And then you try to rip the mat apart. That allows you to reference your outer leg line, lateral line. Okay, great. And now we're going to expand this out into side angle, which is of course more dynamic because the knee is bent. So you really can see exactly how the hips are moving here. So I have a longer stance, right toes out to the right, bend your right knee so it's over ankle, and you're going to take hand to block the floor on that outer leg. Okay. So now my thigh can press into my arm. And that tells me that my outer leg is working for me. Okay? If the knee is collapsed in, it just means my outer leg's not working. So you press the leg into your arm, and in contrast, the front hip can almost press forward a little. Okay? That helps you roll your navel up. You can lift your top arm up or overhead, however you want to use your top arm, but really focus on the power of this front foot. You drive the front foot through the floor, You press your thigh into your arm, and it's like you're trying to press your hips forward. Tendency is for the hips to kind of collapse behind us. So you press it forward. That's all in the power of your outer hip. And there's 2 more breaths here. Take a big inhale. Take a big exhale. And one last time, breath in. Okay, great. And then you keep your feet rooted through the floor as you come up. Straighten your right leg. Let's switch sides. So your left toes are pointing to the left. You're going to bend the knee. And you can notice knee in, knee out. We're going to focus on that one for now. You're going to take the block, a hand to block the floor onto the outside of your leg. Okay, now you drive your foot through the floor. And your outer thigh can press into your arm, and that gives you the signal that your outer hips are working, right? So hopefully you can feel that. But if it's kind of hard to feel the outer hip, just know that if you're pressing your thigh into your arm and you're pressing your left hip kind of forward in space, you have to be using your outer leg. So it's almost like an extra signal for what's going on. Okay, so you drive the foot down. Keep your left outer thigh working. Roll your navel up toward the ceiling, and of course you can take your top arm straight up or overhead, whatever allows you to focus on this front leg the most. So try this another 2 or 3 breaths. Very good. Yeah, one last deep abdominal breath. Okay, and then you drive your feet through the floor, come all of the way back up, release, heel toe yourself a little closer together. And from here, from mountain pose, again, press your feet straight down through the floor. Feel the length of the legs. You might feel it like from front to back. And then notice the inside legs can be active as you try to bunch up the mat. And then as you try to rip the mat apart, you're going to feel your outer legs work. Okay, very good. The next one, we're going to go into pyramid and go directly into warrior 3. So I'm no longer going to mirror you. My right foot forward and your right foot is forward. Left foot back, toes diagonal. You're going to bend your front knee a little bit, turn your hips forward, and then pubic bone back, heart forward. For now, I'm going to keep my right hand on my hip, and my left hand is going to be on the block. And eventually in warrior 3, oftentimes people lift their block higher to get some more lung length through the front of the spine. But from here, you press your foot into the floor, inside foot and outside foot. And as you're trying to navigate inside foot, outside foot, you might notice that your hips react to that as well. From here, we're trying to balance it. So you're pressing both your inside foot and your outside foot into the floor. Right? And you're lengthening your lungs forward because we're eventually going to lift up into our warrior 3, where we're standing on just the right foot. So especially here, it's really imperative to find the footfall in your front foot. 2 more breaths here. My front leg is straightening. It doesn't have to be straight. You're sliding your right hip back. Take a deep breath in. Okay, and then for warrior 3, you're going to internally rotate the back leg so that your heel is up. And that back leg is going to be straight. Bend your front knee. And before we get into warrior 3, take the knee inward a little, take it outward a little, so you can feel that inner outer hip work. And so you can keep that engaged as you take all the weight into your front foot. You can slide your block forward. And now we're up into warrior 3 proper. So my right hand stays on the hip. Left hand can be on the block, and it can be where it was in pyramid, or if you want to go up a little higher. Go ahead and check this out. Drive both the outside and inside edge of your foot into the floor and see if that affects the inside-outside support that your hip can give you in this pose. If you'd like to, for the last couple breaths, you can squeeze the muscles in your low back a little bit. Maybe lift your front hand off the block. Maybe even reach it forward. But really focus on the standing leg and inner outer hip. Take a deep breath in. Okay, and then bend your front knee. Back foot comes down into pyramid position, and then you use your back body to arrive up. Okay, great. From here, left foot stays forward. right foot steps back. So now my block is in right hand. I bend the front knee. I'm going to turn the hips toward the front toes. With the front knee bent, take the knee inward just a little. That's activation of inner leg. And then important here for our standing poses is you take the knee out a little. That's our outer hip work. Okay, so you're going to keep the outer hip working for you, and then pubic bone back, heart forward. Your left hand can stay on your hip, your right hand to block to floor, and we're now in pyramid. So you drive your foot straight down through the floor. Front foot, both the inside foot and the outside foot. That helps get the whole leg mobilized, especially inner leg, outer leg. Okay, and as you're pressing your foot into the floor, the left hip can slide back, left hip crease can slide back. That may mean your leg straightens somewhat. Maybe it straightens all the way, it doesn't have to. But really notice the footfall and how that can influence the ability to engage the muscles around your hips. And there's 2 or 3 more breaths here, and then we'll transition into Warrior 3. Take a deep breath in, big exhale. So to transition, you're going to internally rotate your back leg, so it's more like in a lunge. So the back heel is up. Keep the back leg nice and strong. Bend your front knee a little bit. Make sure the knee's not going out nor in. It feels like both inner and outer legs are supported. And then you drive your front foot into the floor. You can send your block forward a little bit as well. Some people will also raise it higher. Especially if you can get that like back bend to the length of the front of the spine. A little bit of back extension here, a little. And then you drive the front foot, drive it through the floor. All right, feel inner outer hip work. If it makes sense, you can just lift your hand off the block a millimeter. Maybe you can even reach your right arm forward. Reach your right arm forward as you drive the right heel back. And 2 or 3 more breaths here. Okay, very good. And then the hand can come back to the block, bend your standing leg, back foot comes down, and then we're coming out of pyramid and back up. Okay, good. So I'll stand on my right foot for this. What I encourage you to do next is to work from Warrior 3 to Half Moon. And so this is a spectrum of movement where Warrior 3, and I'll take the block lengthwise so I can take both hands on it. Okay, so maybe I can go up like this. So here, my hips are facing the floor. Because I'm sitting on my right foot, my right hand's on the block, and I squeeze my outer hip muscles to roll to Half Moon. And then I come back down toward Warrior 3. Now you notice I'm not getting into the full pose because I want to try this as a vinyasa. It's hard for me to describe this and do it at the same time. But my focus is on the standing leg and working that outer hip to roll the belly up, and then working on the structure of the inner leg to roll the hip down. So try that a few times on your own. Don't forget to breathe. Please keep on breathing. And don't forget to relax your face. And you don't have to get into like the full looking up half moon pose and full work here. I'm like really hoping we can fine tune that movement, the engagement. And of course it is going to stress your ability to balance a little bit because your outer inner legs are there to move, but they're also there to balance. So now they have like double duty. So you're going to feel the foot vacillate on the floor a lot more. So try this another couple times. Back leg is straight the whole time, and you're really just squeezing outer hips up into the half moon, and you're squeezing inner legs to turn the hips toward the floor. Okay, great. And then both feet on the ground. You come up, all right. And we'll sort of give that leg a break as we come onto the left foot. So from here, you're going to lift into your Warrior 3. okay? And then from here, you're going to keep your foot fall as best you can as you turn your hips out to the sides. That's an engagement of your left outer hip. And then exhale as you turn your hips back down toward the floor. So repeat that several times. Breathe as much as you can. And notice that the interaction of the foot on the floor with the hip movement it takes some time, it takes repetition, and it takes focus, which is why I'm focusing on it today. But it is a skill that can be built using the same muscles for balance as we do for movement. So back and forth like that another few times. Yeah, feel the muscles around the hip socket work. Feel your inner outer legs work. Okay, very good. And then back foot can come to the floor. You're back up to standing. All right, to Tadasana. Press your feet through the floor. Try to bunch up your mat. There's your inner leg work. Press out and try to rip the mat apart. There's your outer leg work. And then we'll try that subtle work in our wide-legged forward fold. So from here, feet comfortably wide, and you're going to bend your knees, take your hands down to the floor. All right. Good. So you drive your feet down through the floor, lift your inner thighs up toward the ceiling. All right, so we're finding the midline. You can feet down, inner thighs up. And several breaths here. After doing a lot of asymmetric poses in a row, to challenge balance, to challenge inner outer legs, we now get a chance to breathe up and down the midline. So there's another couple breaths here. Okay, and then from here, without really moving the pose, can you find that engagement that it's as if you are trying to bunch up the mat? It's as if you are trying to collect the mat underneath you. And there's your inner leg work. And then from there, it's like you're trying to rip the mat apart with your feet, which is really you're trying to rip the mat apart with your outer hips. And slowly go back and forth between these two states so you can really feel how your inner legs can be involved and how your outer legs can be involved. So unlike demonstrating a forward fold, it's almost impossible to demonstrate what I'm trying to ask because there's not really much movement to be had. You're just alternating between bunching up the mat and ripping the mat apart with your feet. So go back and forth between those two states another couple times. All right. Very good. And then from there, you bend your knees, heel toe yourself closer together. Come all the way up to standing. All right, great. And then to the top of the mat, we'll cycle through into plank. So arms sweep up overhead. Take a huge inhale here. Drive your feet down to lift your lungs up. And then exhale, you can bend your knees, forward fold. Inhale, look forward, take a deep breath in. And then exhale, we're going to come back into plank. We're going to hold plank here for a couple breaths. Drive your hands through the floor and press your hips down a little bit. And then from here, even in plank, imagine trying to bunch up the mat between your feet. So you can feel, it's like you're trying to bunch up the mat longitudinally, like lengthwise. And then you're trying to rip the mat apart with your feet. Good, take a deep breath in. Big exhale. And one last time. Okay, and then take your knees down. From here, right forearm on the floor, and we're going to come up into side plank. So side plank, option number one is with the knees bent, and you're going to lift up here. Option number 2 is with the legs extended, and you come up here. So again, we're using outer hips quite a lot. All right, so you pause here, take a deep breath in, big exhale, and one last time, breath in. Okay, great, and then you lower your hips, come around to the other side, other forearm presses down, and option number 1 is you keep your knees down as you lift into side plank. Option number 2, with legs extended, you lift up into side plank. So it's outer hip working in conjunction with the rest of the lateral line to keep you afloat. All right, very good. And then exhale, come down from there, back to the first side. If you'd like to try this side plank with your top foot up in the air, you can go do that. You can get into plank first and then capture your toes and press your heel up. Okay, like this. Inside plank, hold your toes, press the heel up. If that doesn't work, you can always stay with tree pose, top foot on the bottom leg. But if it's available, you press the heel up, use your bottom hip to lift, take a deep breath in. Okay, great, release from that. Same thing on the other side. Plank, you can focus on that. That's a perfect pose to work on. Very foundational. A little bit more of an accessory pose, but it's a very dynamic practice here, either in tree pose or you can grab your toes, press the heel up toward the ceiling. Still using the outer hips on both legs to keep you afloat. And 2 more breaths here. Take a big inhale. Exhale. One last time. Okay, great. So you can try that again, the side planks, lifting the leg up. For headstanders, there's a wonderful variation that you can try in headstand. From your headstand, you take the leg out to the side. Oh, here I am in Shirshasana. And it's actually outer legs, both of them engaged as you turn one leg out to the side and you press it out. Now, both legs are going to have to be really working for you. So for those who do headstand, and this can be done against a wall. So if you do headstand against the wall, you can still try this work. But notice the outer hips are invaluable to this move. And this is the same move that we're doing in side plank. Okay, so if you don't have a headstand practice, you're not missing out on anything. This is still a lot of hip work, and particularly outer hip work. Okay, so if you're in headstand, keep on doing what you're doing, another 30 seconds. If headstand's not in your practice, you're taking side plank again, either in tree or Vashisthasana. On one side, you hold it for a time, use outer hips as much as you can. Same thing on the other side. Use outer hips as much as you can. All right, so another couple breaths here. If you are in headstand, take both legs up for a breath or two. Find midline again. If you're in side planks, find plank for several breaths. If you're in headstand, come back down, take child's pose, move your head around however you'd like. And if you're in plank, 2 more breaths. Take a big inhale, big exhale, breath in. Okay, great, and then you lower down. Okay, and let's all come back onto the mat. We're gonna lie face up for the next practice, which is Supta Dandasana. Find your block. We're gonna place the block between your thighs. And chair is option number 1. This is without the strap or anything. It's just supine chair is option number 1. If you'd like, you can take your arms behind you. Keep your mid-back grounded. And option number 2 is you extend the legs. So this is almost like facing up in a downward facing dog. So there's a lot of psoas work. And of course the block is keeping our inner legs engaged in the pose. Helps connect the psoas through the legs. Mid-back presses down into the floor. So there is a natural neutral curve in your low back. So you can either pause here, keep on breathing. You might feel your legs start to shake. If it's available, you squeeze the block and take your legs like a third of the way down. You pause here, keeping mid-back into the floor. And then you, as an option, if you'd like, take your legs 2/3 of the way down. Keep your mid-back rooted. Keep the heels pressing out. Keep on crushing the block. And keep breathing with a relaxed face. Okay, and let's all come back up to 90, back to the first option. Last couple breaths here. Take a big inhale. Big exhale. And one last time, breath in. Okay, great. Bend your knees, feet to the floor. Get the block out of the way. Okay, and then from here, come up onto your forearms. So your heart's elevated, like this. Forearms on the floor. And we're going to draw the shoulder blades in, arch your back a little bit to kind of keep an anterior tilt in the hips. From here, lift your legs up, and then see if you can extend your legs fully. Now, they don't have to be fully straight or anything like that. Do try to extend them. And where you extend them kind of depends on your hamstrings and also how much you want to work your psoas. So right now I'm up, that's a little more hamstring length. From here, you're going to separate the legs. So that's your outer legs taking your legs apart. And your inner legs squeeze together, one leg on top of the other. We're scissoring the legs. And then you take the legs back out to the sides again. And then you squeeze the other leg on top, inner thighs together. Go back and forth like this. And if the legs are up high, this is one type of like psoas work. Okay? If you want to challenge yourself in terms of weight bearing, you can take your legs further out, extend the legs wide, squeeze the legs together, one leg on top, extend legs wide, squeeze other leg on top, and go back and forth like this for another 25, 30 seconds here. So you squeeze, there's your adduction. You take your legs away from one another, there's abduction. You go back and forth like this another few times. Noticing the structure of the legs, structure of the hips. Couple more times here. Okay, great. And then you place your feet on the floor, lie on the back. Pause there. All right, and then finally, the last piece of structural work, you're going to take the soles of feet together, press your knees toward the floor. There's your outer legs working for you. And you're press your feet down and lift your hips up just a millimeter. And so this is the last piece of structural work here. So really three motions here. Your feet are pressing together. The knees press toward the floor, which is the outer leg work. Also outer leg work in low back is the hips are just off the floor. And so you pause here, breathe into abdomen. Several breaths here. Okay, very good. And from there, hips down, knees together, and let's come up to seated. Right leg in front, right leg straight, left foot into inner thigh, and you're going to lift up through your lungs, roll your navel to the right, and let's fold down our right leg. Okay, you can always use a strap for this. If you want to place a loop around your foot, you can hold anywhere down the leg. As you're folding to the right, see if you can find the engagement of your left outer thigh. So gently press your left outer thigh toward the floor. Is it on the floor? Not necessarily. But as long as it's pressing toward the floor, you get some activity on the outside of your left hip that also helps ground your left sitting bone, which ultimately gives you more of a stretch in your low back. And then from here, breathe into your left low back a few times. All right, great. And then from there, make your way back up. Please extend your left leg forward. Right foot comes into inner thigh. So the spine, you lengthen a little bit, roll your navel to the left, fold down your left leg. Again, hands onto thigh or shin or foot. You can also use a strap. And as you're folding down your left leg, see if you can find the activity on the outside of your right leg, right hip, in order to press your right thigh toward the floor. That's going to ground your right sitting bone. And when you anchor your sitting bone, you add a little bit more space to your right lumbar spine. Breathe into your right lumbar spine. A few breaths here. Okay, great. And then make your way back up. Both legs forward. Extend them. Arch your back a little bit to lift your lungs. And we can forward fold in Paschimottanasana. So probably the biggest back body stretch of this practice. You press the heels out a bit. And you can round your spine a little bit also if you'd like. And then from here, you press the heels forward. And then it's almost like your heels are trying to collect to the center. And again, your feet don't have to be together. In fact, it actually helps if your legs there's a little bit of space in between. But you press your heels down into the mat, and then it's like you're trying to bunch up the mat inward. There's your abductors, your inside legs. So you can pause there in your Paschimottanasana. And then you still press the heels into your mat, and you try to separate the mat, like you're trying to split the mat in half. And that is done by your abductors, the outside legs. So you can feel your outside legs here. Few more breaths. All right. Very good. And you can make your way back up and lie on the back again. Right knee into chest. Left leg extends. Please take that over for a twist. So Supta Matsyendrasana with the leg coming across. And so as we wind down our practice today, so my hope is that you're getting some stretch along the outer right leg. You can breathe down the right side of your body. So yeah, several breaths down the right side. And especially if you relax the leg, you're actually going to hang off the outer leg. So, especially after all the work we've done on outside legs, you can let that relax, soften down. Breathe into your right side a couple more times. All right. And then from there, you come out of that, hips back to center, and then draw your left knee in, right leg extends forward. Inhale here. And then as you exhale, you take your knee across. So Supta Matsyendrasana on the other side. And again, notice after all the work we've done using our outer thigh, outer hip, I hope this feels like some traction, some lengthening, some space creation on your left that you can breathe into. So yeah, breathe into your left side a few more times. Great. And then from there, you de-rotate, bring your hips back to center, feet flat on the floor. And then we're going to end in a yin version of how we started, with your hips up on the block in bridge pose. So I'm going to demonstrate at the mid-level, but you can go higher or lower. We'll be here for about 2 minutes. All right, so once you find your level, allow your sacrum to relax into the block. Take your feet a little wider, and then see if you can drop one leg in, and it's almost like you're hanging off the hip. So if that does not work for your knees, come out of it somewhat. But if you're able to relax your leg inward, pause there. And as you relax the leg in, generally there's a lengthening on your outer leg. So pause here. And this is just one leg at a time. Okay. And then you can use the engagement of your outer leg to come to center. And from there, drop your leg out to the side. If you need to adjust your foot, like I did, you move your foot around. For the knee to drop out, you're now hanging off of your inner leg. Try to relax your leg. Breathe into lower abdomen a couple times. All right. And then bring your leg back up to the middle. And then the second leg, first drop your knee inward and downward. And as your knee drops inward, you'll get some lengthening at least, maybe a stretch on the outside of your the left hip. So notice it. Try to relax your leg as much as you can. And then from there, you take the knee back up and adjust your foot if necessary. Take your knee out to the side. And that allows you to hang off your inner leg. So pause there. Especially when getting inner leg stretch, I like to breathe in the lower abdomen. For me, at least, that influences the stretch and helps me relax my hip. All right. And then you come back to center. You pause here. A couple breaths in the abdomen. Notice all the work we've done, both lengthening and strengthening inner outer legs. Engage your glutes a little bit. Lift your hips up off the block. Block comes out of the way. And from there, lower your hips to the floor. Extend one leg, followed by the other in final relaxation. And so feel free to get yourself comfortable in order to deeply relax the hips. So yeah, we've done a lot of engagement work today. Especially the outer hips, but really all around the hips. And you can now turn that structure, that stability, into a place of softness and ease. So feel the weight of your legs. Feel the weight of the inseam of your legs. So first, like the inseams of your legs drop down toward the floor. The adductors drape down. Followed by outer legs. Really release outer ankles, outer knee, outer hip toward the floor. And as the legs are quieting, also feel the weight of your sacrum. You did a lot of psoas and low back work today. So with all that stability we've generated, you can convert that stability into ease and relaxation as well. Low back soft. Feel your abdominal organs release and soften. Relax your lungs gently away from one another. The ribs feel heavy. A bit of arm work that we've done in our side planks and headstands. You can convert the stability of your arms into space and let your arms relax. Finally, you can convert your stability of attention, especially with our balance postures. We have to pay pretty strict attention to our balance. You can allow your thought process to relax. And for the next 2 minutes, simply observe your inward sensations. All right. Very good. So from here, guide your awareness to your breathing. And start taking some gently deeper inhales and exhales. Guide a breath down your legs, down your arms, throughout your torso, throughout all this space that you've cultivated. Down the midline, down your side bodies. Very good. And then from there, please draw one knee into your chest, give your knee a good hug, and sweep a breath across your low back. And then switch legs, hug your other knee into chest, sweep a breath across your low back. Great, and then please draw both knees into chest and give your knees a good hug. Take an inhale here, and then exhale, roll over to one side, pause on your side. Inhale and exhale here. And then allow your next inhale to guide you up to a comfortable seat, cross-legged or otherwise. All right, and then find your sense of balance. So in the practice, we balanced inner outer leg. We worked on gravitational balance. Final relaxation, we worked with the balance between stability and ease. And so feel your balance between left and right sitting bone. Feel your ears congruent to one another, side by side. All right. Very good. So my hope is that you can take that sense of balance to the rest of your day. Thank you so much for practicing with me. Namaste.